Hello, and welcome to Wayfarer, the cooperative commander variant. I'm Ashidin, the lead developer on Wayfarer. In this story-based Magic the Gathering mode of play, you'll embark on an epic journey, either solo or with your friends, gathering together a pre-constructed commander deck and upgrading it over time to tackle new and dangerous foes in familiar settings. This video will go over crucial concepts and an example run-through of single-player play. Let's get started! So, what is Wayfarer? Well, back in April of 2021, several friends decided to get together and build a format where story was paramount in addition to the Magic the Gathering gameplay you know and love. In this new creation, we, the Wayfarer Guild Development Group, came up with new ways to interact with an episodic structure. As I move over to the tabletop simulator mod that we have available through a wonderful fan of ours, tehtrilz, I can illustrate the card types you'll be seeing when playing a game of Wayfarer. Wayfarer supports up to 3 commander players, as well as the host of the game, often similar to a dungeon master in Dungeons & Dragons, what we call the Scrivener. As the Scrivener, it's your job to guide the group through their scenes and their challenges, as well as give the Wayfarers, your players, fun and excitement along their path through a journey's 5 episodes. Our first release, Arcavios Schools Out Forever, is set on the plane of Arcavios, of course, but takes a lot of cues from Wizards of the Coast's spring set release of Strixhaven School of Mages. In this example setting, I will be playing both as the Scrivener and as a Wayfarer to show you that even playing solo is entirely possible once you understand what to do. The only difficult learning curve Wayfarer has is playing the Scrivener, so we decided to load all the unique mechanics onto that player to make learning and playing as quick as possible. To start, each Wayfarer joining the game picks, as a recommendation, because you can certainly play homebrews or other decks yourself in Wayfarer, a pre-constructed commander deck from the already available Wizards of the Coast product line. We built the format specifically to work with these products to provide a baseline experience, and because we know Wizards of the Coast balances these decks quite well. Once you've selected your deck, it's time for the most important part as a Wayfarer, selecting a new card type that we call Spark Emblems. Spark Emblems are powerful, unique cards that give you, the Wayfarer, special abilities that any Planeswalker would normally get. Doing this allows you to play into the fantasy of a Planeswalker more so than the regular competitive version of the game, and enhances the feel of being uniquely your own person. In this way, we allow players much more freedom of customization by selecting Commander and Spark Emblem together. In this example single-player game, I am picking Arm for Battle, headed up by Wyleth, Soul of Steel, and I'll be picking the Courage Spark Emblem. Our core set initial release of Spark Emblems contain 5 mechanically unique and exciting varieties to try out, and see which one fits best with the commander that you pick. Once you've picked your commander and your Spark Emblem, you're ready to play. Now let's proceed to play with episode 1 of Arcavios Schools Out Forever, Guided Tour. To give you a quick story brief, you, as a Wayfarer, are basically a mercenary planeswalker for hire. You link up with other Wayfarers from time to time to get jobs done that help other beings on other planes or worlds in Magic the Gathering. Kasmina, a teacher and mage on the plane of Arcavios, has asked you to come to Strixhaven to see what's going on there and solve any problems there might be. Being asked to show up outside of the school to avoid disrupting the students with your unannounced presence, You planeswalk or teleport to Arcavios from another plane, heeding her summons to approach from the outskirts to make you seem less conspicuous. Thus, the game opens with you utilizing the beacons that guide you to the school until you come across one that is shrouded in illusion. Needing to figure out a way to break the illusion to progress, the Wayfarers decide to attempt it the direct way, attacking it with their magic. As a Wayfarer myself, I get to start the game with 30 life instead of the normal Commander 40 life, as well as always going first. Even in single player, you will draw a card because the Scrivener has special abilities that are different than a regular game of Magic. Once my turn is over, I will explain all the different things as we come across them. So, I'll go ahead and go through my motions of taking my turn. I will go ahead and draw a card. And then I will go ahead and play a Plains. And yeah, it looks like we got the Soul Ring here, so let's go ahead and play that. Then we'll tap that Soul Ring for 2 colorless and play Hero's Blade. That seems pretty strong. And something very interesting is that the Hero's Blade will actually help us with our next bit we'll talk about. So, now that we've gone through our beginning initial steps on our turns, untap, upkeep, draw, the things you're normally familiar with in a Magic game, we get to the Spark Emblem. And the Spark Emblem says, and if you want to take a look at it here, you can see it has its name line. It's got its tier type, so that way you can tell exactly what it's doing on the turn of. And if you want to take a look at the Courage card type, and if you want to take a look at the Spark Emblem card type here, you can see it's got its name, Courage. It's got its tier, so that way you can tell that we are playing on tier 1, initially the episode 1 of any journey. And then it's got its type line here with Spark Emblem and Courage. And then it has its game rules text, which is at the beginning of combat on your turn until your next turn, up to 1 target creature an opponent controls must attack you each combat if able. And then it also has at the beginning of your end step, if you don't control one, create the Lionheart, a legendary star/2 red avatar creature token with vigilance, and this creature's power is equal to the number of attacking creatures. So its power will always change based on what's attacking, but its toughness is 2. So if we're going to go ahead and skip around to the end of the turn here, after I've played my Soul Ring and my Hero's Blade, we will go ahead and activate that Courage. That ability will trigger, and we will put out the Lionheart. And since I have the Hero's Blade, and when a legendary creature enters the battlefield under our control, we can attach the Hero's Blade to it. So that way the Lionheart is now, at the very least, a 0/4, or a 3/4 actually, looking at the +3/+2 here. So yeah, that's pretty sweet. So we've got a nice creature to start us off from the beginning of the game, just in case something crazy comes out from the Scrivener on their side. But that'll be it for my turn, and that's basically all that Spark Emblems do. They're an extra ability that triggers during your turn, and for the core set, typically gives you a creature to use. So, like I said before, I create the Lionheart special avatar that represents a facet of my Spark Emblem and represents a part of me on the battlefield. I will always create this avatar at the end of my turn if I don't have one, so it will give me a way to help keep at bay the Scrivener's enemies that come from the Scene deck. So, speaking of Scenes and the Scene deck, it's now the Scrivener's turn. A Scrivener turn is a little different from a normal player's turn. For one, the Scrivener starts with the Scene card, a new card type that has special rules and mechanics to progress the story on it, as well as flavor text to describe what's going on. Sometimes the Scene card will give out special cards to work as puzzle pieces to continue, as well as summon special bosses that you must face to continue on. So taking a look at the Scene card that we have here for Scene 1 of our first episode, you can tell right now that if we look at the parts of the card, you can see that it has the name, the beacons guide you. It has the flavor text. Kasmina told you to use the beacons to find your way to Strixhaven, but they are shrouded in illusion. It has its games rule text. It has its type text. It's a scene 1 of Arcavios subtype. And then it has a tier indicator icon to let you know which tier that you're playing on. So that way, during the game, you can always match the tier of the scenes you're playing to the tier of the emblem that you're playing with to make sure that you're always playing with the correct cards in every different episode, all right? So, if we want to go over the game's rules text for the Beacons Guide You, the first initial scene of this episode, when this scene opens, create 3 beacon artifact tokens with twice X light counters on them each, where X is the number of Wayfarers. Then, secretly choose one. I already did this before the game started. If damage will be dealt to you, that source's controller may instead remove that many counters from a beacon. If that was the chosen beacon, remove an additional counter from it. When a beacon has no light counters on it, sacrifice it. Whenever a beacon leaves the battlefield, ready the next scene if it's the one you chose. And these are instructions directly for the Scrivener themselves, so anything that refers to as you is referring to the player that's playing the Scrivener. Otherwise, target Wayfarer loots the spoils? We'll have to talk about that when that happens. When this scene closes, sacrifice all beacons. So, all these beacons will disappear once it's done so we don't clog up the board. Plus, we've got a little bit of a game here. We have to figure out which of these beacons is the correct one to progress through the mechanics to the next scene and figure out what to do next. So, on the Scrivener side, you can see we've got several things set up here. Just to explain the setup that we have available. Here are the mechanics for the scene out in front, the beacons. There's a spoils deck. I'll get to that when we come to it. We've got the scene decks for every different scene. So during this scene, and I'll go into that in just a moment, I'll explain how all this stuff works. So during this turn, as the Scrivener starts their turn, they already have cards in hand equal to their base hand size, which is different depending on how many Wayfarers are in the game. Since I'm playing solo, the Scrivener only has 2 cards in hand. The Scrivener always pulls their hand from the relevant scene deck for each scene, and you can see the Scrivener has been drawing cards from the Scene 1 deck. When Scene 2 comes, the Scrivener will return their Scene 1 hand to the Scene 1 deck, and start playing with the Scene 2 deck instead. This way, each scene has thematic and unique cards that will set the stage for each encounter and make it feel like a true journey through each episode. Now that the Scrivener has progressed to their untap step, it's time for the upkeep step. At every upkeep step, the Scrivener creates an essence land, which is crucial to a lot of Scrivener gameplay. An essence of land allows the Scrivener to tap it for 1 mana of any color, allowing them to cast spells or pay for costs. Once that happens, the Scrivener proceeds to their draw step, through which the Scrivener does not draw as normal. Don't worry, we'll get to the actual step where the Scrivener draws later. Now it's time for the pre-combat main phase. At the beginning of this phase, the Scrivener casts a spell for free from their hand equal to the number of Wayfarers in the game. So, in a single player game, it's 1 card. With 2 Wayfarers, it's 2 cards. And with 3, it's 3. Simple to remember, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got here. The Scrivener has Make Your Mark, which gives a creature +1/+0 until end of turn, and then makes a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. And then we've also got Beacon Tech, which is a new card that we've created for the Scrivener deck. We have new cards that are being played explicitly made for Wayfarer that have special abilities on them. And let's go ahead and go over this card and read through its text. So, as normal, you have the name, Beacon Tech, its mana cost, a red and a white, its power and toughness, 2 and 2, its type line, which is a creature human artificer, and then you also have its rules text, which is vigilance. Whenever counters are removed from a beacon you control, Beacon Tech deals that much damage to any target. And then it has an ability to tap. Put a light counter on a beacon you control. Then if Beacon Tech is infused, we'll get to that when we get to it, put a light counter on another beacon you control. As long as Beacon Tech is infused, it has +3/+3. And then the flavor text is, she keeps watch for intruders and new parts. So the beacon tech is definitely here to protect the beacons from our attack, as we're trying to figure out which one is the illusion and which one's the real one. So I do think the Scrivener is going to deploy that beacon tech up front for us, just so we can have something to fight and try to get through their blocking abilities. It's got vigilance, so it can attack us and block later. That's quite interesting. And that's the only spell that it can play this turn. Now, I could actually tap this mana here from the Essence Land to play Make Your Mark, but as I know that I'm not going to have a creature die this turn, it's probably not the best play. So I'll go ahead and return that back to the Scrivener's hand. We'll have the beacon tech out, and yeah. So, after the requisite number of cards are cast simultaneously, they are put on the stack in the order the Scrivener chooses. These cards may be free, but you can still copy them, counter them, or do anything with them as normal. Don't hesitate to counter something you feel is too strong. After the spell's resolved, the Scrivener moves into combat. If they can attack with any creatures, as you'll notice, I can't attack with this one because in Magic rules, any creature that comes out that doesn't have haste has summoning sickness. They will do so as the player controlling them sees fit, and then move on to the post-combat main phase as normal. From there, the Scrivener moves to their end step, and this is the place where they draw cards. So if the Scrivener ever has cards less than their base hand size, which we stated before was determined by the number of Wayfarers. So since I played one card here, I would have to draw another card back up to 2. This gives the Scrivener a way to strategize how best to challenge the Wayfarers turn to turn. Don't try to mess with these draws though. They can't be affected as outlined by the rules. The Scrivener is one crafty opponent. Oh, and one more sneaky thing. The Scrivener has no hand size, so be careful about those spells that might let everyone draw cards. After that, the Scrivener turn is over, and we progress back to the Wayfarer's turn. I say Wayfarers because in Wayfarer as a cooperative game, all the Wayfarers share their turns together. That means you all take the same phases together, declare attacks together, block for each other, and more. It's just the beginning of a beautiful friendship with your Wayfarer teammates. So now that I've explained the turn structure, let's go into a bit of more of actual gameplay where I will bring up new rules and cards as things happen. So I'll go ahead and start here and untap my lands and my Soul Ring. Let's draw a card for my turn as well. Ooh, drew a Rogue's Passage. So let's go ahead and we want to put out Wyleth's Soul of Steel. So let's play that mountain, tap the mountain and the plains and the Soul Ring. Put out that Wyleth's Soul of Steel so we can attack and draw some cards. That'll be some sweet things we can do there. Now we have the 2/2 over there, and as we enter combat, we can use our Courage ability to make it so that one target creature an opponent controls must attack us next turn. So we'll go ahead and make it the Beacon Tech here, having to attack us, right? Okay, so let's go into combat ourselves. We've got a nice 3/4. We'll go ahead and attack. This 3/4 will get its power equals to the number of attacking creatures, then +3/+2. So we'll attack with that, and I'm pretty sure the opponent wants to stop us from being able to attack one of their beacons. So they'll block with the Beacon Tech here, and then they'll use their Essence ability to use their Make Their Mark to have that turn into a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. So we'll go ahead and put that into the Scrivener's discard pile. The Beacon Tech itself will also die, and we'll get our spirit 3/2 token because that's what happened after it resolved. Great. We didn't actually get through to attack a beacon, so we'll have to wait until next turn to see what we can do about that. All right, so we're actually going to be done for the turn here, and we'll go ahead and pass it back over to the Scrivener. So the Scrivener will untap their lands. They will create a new Essence land because they get one at every upkeep, and then they will have to see what they can do with their card in their hand. Oh, look, and it's Fibblethip the Lost. Wow. So we'll cast this as our free spell for the turn. Fibblethip enters the battlefield and draws another card for the Scrivener. That's a spring main servant. So I can't actually cast this card because we're past the ability to cast cards for free, because we let this resolve and we got its ability from it. However, if I had 3 essence lands, I could cast this spring main servant for 2 and a green because it can tap for any mana of any color. But if that's going to be it for our turn, I guess what we're only going to do now is want to defend against these creatures that the Wayfarers have. So the Scrivener will go ahead and pass their turn, draw another card for their turn. At their end step, of course, to make sure they go back up to 2 cards. And then we'll pass it back over. So I'll go ahead and untap my stuff. I'll draw a card. Oh, I got a Haunted Cloak. Ooh. Well, I want to make sure that I can deal damage to these beacons so I can try to get some spoils. So let's go ahead and play Rogue's Passage. So I'll play Rogue's Passage. Tap 2 here. Tap 2 there. Tap the Rogue's Passage and make the Lionheart unblockable. So now it can not be blocked this turn. And we're going to go ahead and use the Courage ability here to make the Spirit have to attack us next turn. That seems like a good idea. And then we'll go ahead and enter combat. So we'll attack with the Lionheart, and we'll just attack with it on its own because it has it can't be blocked. So its power changes equal to the number of attacking creatures, and it gets +3/+2. So it will now go up to 4, and let's hit this beacon. So is this the correct beacon? It is not. So we'll toss that beacon away into the token discard over there. But since we got rid of one of those beacons, we now trigger Loot the Spoils. And let's talk about spoils for just a moment. So, come across a piece of the spoils. Looting the spoils as a specific action happens when usually scenes tell players to do so. Doing this action casts the top card of the spoils deck, typically under a targeted player of the Scrivener's choice, or just by the player who triggered the action themselves. So as you can see here, I've triggered it myself through destroying a beacon that wasn't the correctly chosen one. Doing this, however, has given me a fresh new card type, an item. So, item is a super type of a regular card's type whose unique function is that there can only be one item on the battlefield at any one time. If there are 2 more items on the battlefield, well, it's time to choose one of those you really like best and keep it. The other gets shuffled back into the spoils deck. Spoils decks contain 20 item cards, which are typically 2 cards of every rarity in varying amounts. In the core set of Wayfarer, we added all the items to be artifacts, but maybe in the future, other card types might be seen. Once an item leaves the battlefield in some way, it is also shuffled back into the spoils deck. Then it's ready for another looting later down the road in the episode. Get those items to acquire more power in your journey. So if you want to take a look at the item that we just acquired here, it's called Collaborative Curative. These cards, of course, have no mana cost because they're cast for free out of the spoils deck. It is an item artifact. It has X, tap, sacrifice Collaborative Curative. Each Wayfarer chooses 1. X is the number of Wayfarers. Other Wayfarers can help pay the costs for this ability, so you can work together to activate this item card and do its abilities. So its abilities are gain 5 life, or target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn, or put target card from your graveyard on top of your library. And once each Wayfarer picks one, the other Wayfarer, you can choose the same one. So if you guys want to pick 2 gain 5 lives, or if you both want to put a card back from your graveyard on top of your library, entirely up to you. All right, so we've got this special cool item card that we can use on our next turn, which I think will be very handy because we'll probably want to use it to help my creatures get through. But that's just blowing up a beacon right there. So we're done with that on our turn. The Spirit has to attack on the Scrivener's next turn. Let's give it back to the Scrivener. We have nothing else to do because we used everything to attack in that turn. So the Scrivener starts their turn. They will get on their upkeep step another essence land, and now they've got 3. So we're gonna have to talk about something quite interesting when the Scrivener gets 3 essence lands. And that is, of course, essence and infuse. So let's talk about it. The Essence lands were already explained to have given the ability to tap for any color of mana, but they also have a special power the Scrivener can use to supercharge their cards that have infuse abilities on them, as well as imbue properties to cards with or without them, like haste and the ability to not be countered. Infusing a spell or permanent can only be done at sorcery speed and requires tapping 3 Essence lands to do so. Doing it this way saps the land temporarily for a turn, meaning they won't untap during their next untap step. The Scrivener will utilize this to slow down Wayfarers that are quickly outpacing the scene, so watch out. So if you can take a look here, each Essence land has the reminder text on it to say that if you're casting a spell, you may tap 3 untap Essences to infuse it, and this works with the free casted spells you have during your turn as the Scrivener. So you can infuse a card, or you can decide to use these Essence lands to just play more cards out of your hand. It's really up to you depending on what you feel would be a good challenge for your Wayfarers. So, starting this turn, let's take a look at the Scrivener's hand. They've got Springmane Servant and Spirit Summoning, so I think I want to play Springmane Servant here as another creature. So when it enters the battlefield, the Scrivener gains 2 life. We'll go to 22. And I don't think I want to infuse it, so I guess I want to play, for this turn, the Spirit Summoning out of my hand, so we can draw more cards and we can put more things out. Now this is looking kind of dicey for the Wayfarers. Lots more cards are on the battlefield, and it'll be a little bit more difficult to get through. But we've still got that Rogue's Passage, so we can go ahead and get through these creatures if we need to, right? All right, so that'll be the Spirit has to attack this turn. So let's go ahead and make sure it's this one. So the Spirit has to attack. The Lionheart has a good amount of toughness to block it, so the Lionheart will definitely block that Spirit and it will die. Good thing that we had our emblem to make it so creatures have to attack this turn, right? So we can get rid of their creatures. That's pretty good. And then I think we'll just go ahead and pass it back to the Wayfarer. So the Scrivener ends their turn. They'll draw 2 cards, back up to their hand size of 2. And their lands will untap next turn because we tapped them for mana, okay? So another thing that I forgot to talk about that I'll just go ahead and quickly point out during this introductory video is that there is one extra box on here called the Adjust Life. This is for the Scrivener themselves. So if you can see here, it says starting 20. This lets the Scrivener player know that their starting life is at 20. And then when you progress to the next scenes, it'll change their life total based on whether or not they died through life loss, or if they survived with their life intact. They'll add health or go back up to a certain amount. All right, so let's go ahead and start my next turn here. Let's untap all my lands. Not that way. Draw a card. Ooh, Boros Signet. All right, that seems pretty good. I do want to get in and try to get that other beacon, though. So let's go ahead and play Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion. And yeah, I think the best thing to do here will be to probably play Unbreakable Formation so we can get an additional counter. I like that. So let's tap these lands. Unbreakable Formation will put some +1/+1 counters on these creatures, so they'll get bigger. Seems good to me, right? Put that into our graveyard. And what else can we do? We have 1, 2, 3 mana here. I think what we want to do this turn is, yeah, let's go ahead and put out that Boros Signet. That seems fine. And we can also, if we need to, use the collaborative curative to pop it to make a creature indestructible or put a card back on top of my library. And I might do that for Unbreakable Formation because that seems pretty strong. So let's go ahead and go into combat. We'll go ahead and attack with Lionheart here. Let's see, do our creatures have vigilance? They do, from Unbreakable Formation. So we'll attack with the Lionheart. That will make it, and Wyleth as well. Why not? So that'll make the Lionheart a 1, 4, 5, 4. Sure, no, 5, 5. And then Wyleth will be a 3, 3. Doesn't have any equipment on him, so we won't draw any cards, but that's fine. So we will be attacking, let's see. Let's go after Beacon on the left. Let's see if that's the correct beacon. So we'll attack with that. They definitely want to stop us from being able to get through, so they will block the Spring Main Servant on the Lionheart here, and they'll try to block Wyleth here. And Fibblethip is just too scared. He's not going to get hit, so we'll just make that happen. So, Spring Main Servant dies from combat. Spirit Token also dies from combat. But Wyleth had 3 power versus the Spirit's 2 toughness, so we were able to get through and hit this beacon. And looking at the scene, it says, if it's the chosen beacon, remove additional counter from it. And yes, that was the chosen beacon, so both counters go away, and the beacon is now destroyed. So this actually triggers readying the next scene. So that means that this scene will close at the end step of any turn. And we'll go into all the different things that happen there once we get to the end step, all right? So, it looks like we're done with the turn. We used the Courage ability when we entered combat. I forgot to say that we want to make Fibblethip attack next turn. Poor Fibblethip. It's not a target of a spell, so it won't get shuffled away, so... But, doing this also, triggering the ready the next scene at the end step, we'll go into that. So let's go ahead and go into the end step here. And so after you take down a scene mechanic, just like I did here with finding the correct beacon to destroy, the scene will close and the Scrivener will start readying the next scene. This typically happens at the end step of any turn. As stated before, the Scrivener will shuffle their hand away and reveal a new scene at the beginning of their next turn. So I'll go ahead and put my hand that I was going to use next turn, shuffle that away, and then I'll get 2 new cards for scene 2 as we're moving on to scene 2, and I'll get rid of the card for scene 1. All right? So, keep note, any permanents still on the battlefield will... any permanents still on the battlefield for the Scrivener stay there, so you might want to clean up things before progressing further. Unless you like your challenges layered on top of each other like some rich, difficult chocolate cake. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that beacon too, because that's what the scene said here, sacrifice all beacons. So that's gone. And we are now ready for scene 2. And that's where I'll stop it here today. So after that, it's just a battle between you, the scene, and the Scrivener, giving out tidbits of lore or engaging with NPCs during your journey as you venture to complete the episode. Once you've progressed past the episode's scene 4, you've won the game. Then it's on to the next episode while you upgrade your deck and your Spark emblem. And that's Wayfarer, a well-crafted, refined story mode addition to Magic the Gathering that encourages cooperative, customizable gameplay that can be replayed your way over and over with new commanders, new Spark emblems, new items, and more. Thanks for watching this introductory video, and I hope to meet you on your journey, Wayfarer. This has been Ashinen, lead developer of the Wayfarer Guild. Goodbye!